this team sucks, that team sucks, the good teams are bad, the bad teams are bad, and the picks coming out of this trap, they're even worse.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Thank God.
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Football fans, the time is now.
Give me a hell yeah!
For the football show you never knew you wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Broken Helmet.
Coming to you live on tape on this Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. It is the shittiest NFL show that you have never heard of. The Broken Helmet. Rich Eggy here behind the wheel. And by the results, one would say that I am completely inebriated driving this car, ship, vessel that we are in. But if you wanted to get in touch with the show anyway, the email is brokenhelmetshow@gmail.com or at Broken Helmet Pod on X. So where do I begin? How about this? We're going to do this one. I didn't just get out of the shower, but look at the beautiful hair. All a natural. No water, no gel. You know, a nod to the great GRP. And if you've never heard of him, I believe he is part of the Vegas gambling Twitter sphere that I just recently discovered, which seems to be chock full of people who are all crazy established in some way, shape, or form. I'm probably late to the game. As much as I love Twitter, it was just a space I never fell upon. And now, watching spaces that include people called Elf and Omar and some dude called Computer. And if you ever liked the G.I. Joe PSAs that were on E-Bombs World, every time I hear them talk about this guy Computer, I just think of I'm a computer, which I forget which G.I. Joe character it was. I don't think it was Roadblock, but he was at one of these PSAs, that's all he said, I'm a computer. And so when I was listening to this one space over the weekend and they kept talking about Computer, that's all kept going on over and over in my head. But anyway, to that end, it just feels like there are millions and millions of people who are established in all different kinds of spaces within Twitter, X, whatever, and that are all crazy entrenched in what they do. Very popular, very well known for their specific niche. Maybe it's cross niches, who knows? But everywhere you turn, when you find a new social media space, I keep saying space, say space 5 more times, that you find out that it's just like, man, these things are like well entrenched. And I can't, it's tough to find new people that pop up in them. Occasionally you do. I mean, I have seen many people pop up just in listening to podcasts. And, now that podcasts are on YouTube too and the whole nine, I've seen so many people come. I mean, I remember, and I said this in previous podcasts, I remember Nick Costas before he was Nick Costas, when I think the first time that I saw him, or didn't see him, but heard him, was on Gil Alexander's program. And I could be wrong about that, but I'm almost positive, because I remember when he ended up having the You Better You Bet show, I said, oh, that's that guy Nick Costas. I remember that voice. You can't forget the voice, right? Because it's a really raspy voice like this. And I'm not good at imitations. I don't have that gift. But again, I'm just saying that you hear people pop up, here and there. But nowadays, it just feels like every place that I turn, people are already established. Like I'm not hearing people pop up. More so, I guess, in podcasts, because podcasts come around and, they tend to be with some kind of brand or broadcast media. Maybe you listen to CBS Sports, Fantasy. A lot of people from within one program will pop up with their own programs. And CBS is a very integrated network with a lot of synergy between all of their broadcasting. But
get to the goddamn point, Egg.
I got you. Anyway, I was just trying to say that this shithead here, who only walked away from media in 2007, right? And I was not established when I walked away, only to try to pick it up again in 2019. Well, nobody does that, Dunsky. They don't. Why? Because I don't know.
That is not how this works!
Exactly. But we continue on because we dig it. So let's take a look here at the week that was week 5 in the NFL. So as I bring up the results here, we will see that it was a dog win on the week. And I guess the biggest thing of note here is that while the Dogs won 8 of the 6 games that they covered, that is, they came in 8 for 8 in terms of wins. San Fran, Carolina at home, Denver on the road, Tennessee on the road, Tampa Bay on the road, Washington on the road, New England on the road, Jacksonville at home. All 8 of those Dogs won. Not only did they cover, they just outright won. And you know what that means? That means like money, probably jackpots if you were able to parlay any of that. A lot of cash to be had if you were able to piece any of that together. And if you just went into the week with the approach that I am going to pick dogs to win and I'm going to parlay a couple of them, then for sure, you could have just ended up walking down that aisle, winning, big win, dancing away, big bags of cash. And that's a terrible little dance I did there. Funny thing, funny note, as I go into another tangent, which nobody will find funny at all except for me. I went with my buddy Rob Parsons. Bobby, what's up, dude? And we went to the old Conan O'Brien show back when it was after Jay Leno. And I think this was like 2000. And we sit there. He had gotten the tickets, invited me. We went to the city. I think we might have had a pop or two. And then we sat down, and before the Conan show, and they might do this with all talk shows, I'm not sure, because this is the only talk show I've ever been to. The host comes out, talks to everybody, tells a couple of jokes, does a little stand-up. And during the Conan that we went to, he comes out, and he starts pointing at people to dance, or they sent people up and down the aisles to dance. And for whatever fucking reason, they point at me. And I'm like, no, not me. And then my buddy Rob starts laughing. And he's like, no, dude, they're pointing at you. You got to get up. And they wanted us to get up and dance. And so we get up, and I'm doing this like, I don't even know what it was. It kind of like a stupid, I think it was like this. And it was like this stupid Indian, it looked like an Indian rain dance. And all of a sudden, Conan, shit you not, Conan just says, oh, whoa, everybody stop. Everybody stop dancing. And we stopped dancing. And then he points at me and he goes, except for you. Can you do that? Whatever you're doing there, can you do that again? And everybody just turns, and I got to sit there and do this stupid, like, I don't even know, tribal Indian rain dance. Stupid. It's just because I'm pure white with zero rhythm at all. And then I'm just sitting there. I just get down. I'm all red in the face. Conan O'Brien is laughing his balls off. Rob, I think, pissed his pants. But anyway, long story short, that's I don't even know how I got there. I think I was playing the horns, and then I was saying, "Come on down." Whatever. Fuck it. Back to where we were, which was talking about the NFL wagering stats here. So the Dogs all ended up winning big. If you pieced all those together, you could have done well. I did not. They crushed me. And I had a terrible week, a horrendous week. We'll get to that in just a bit. But the overs and unders, let's get off the Dogs and the favorites. Overs and unders were 9-5 in favor of the overs for the week. When you look at the teases, they were not as strong. You obviously, Dogs were good at 10-4, and the overs were good at 12-2. But otherwise, the favorites and the unders were 8-5 and 8-6, respectively, which isn't that great if you're looking for teaser performance. And this is the first week. Kill me again. This is my third week in a row that I've been trying to do teasers, and the teasers have not worked out. Third or fourth? I think it's the third. But my teasers previously, I had hit a good clip. I had hit, 8-2. Unfortunately, for my other weeks, I ended up picking like the teams that didn't. I was 7-3 last week. I'm 2 weeks ago, if you count this week as last week. And the week before that, I can't pull it up. But also, I was also strong. I think I had 8-3. Solid with my teasers. This week, I was 6-5. So, like I said, teasers seem to be a good proposition because you get 6 points and you can manipulate the odds, blah, 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 blah. I said this before I started getting into teasers 3 weeks ago again, is that I walked away from them because I just didn't think they were worth it because you get such shit odds on the back end. And it's still a parlay. You still have to be able to pick multiple events, right? And so for the multiple events, you get shit odds, but you get 6.5 points. Regardless, this week it was not to be had. Again, dogs came in and just, ruined a lot of stuff. And not to mention Circa, and we'll get to that later. Anyway, we also track a couple of other things: home dogs, big road favorites, halftime leads, trifecta, pros and Joes. None of them really stood out. Home dogs were 2 and 3. Carolina and Jacksonville were the two home dogs that won. Could have pieced those together. If you liked home dogs, you could have picked Carolina and Jacksonville. But if you thought I was not on Jacksonville, as Kansas City was my best bet because I'm stupid, and as a result,
I am in so much pain right now.
Facts. Big road favorites were 1-0. That was Detroit. That was the one game that all week long people were talking about that it was the lock. Cincinnati had lost the week before in a blowout, had returned home, and were underdogs by 7 or more points. And that play hits, 70, 80% of the time, whatever the hell it is, whoever you're following or whatever statistics you've generated at home. That was the play that I heard all week long. And that did not come to fruition as Detroit ended up winning that one. Halftime leads this week, not great. Last week, there was only 2 losses. This week was 8 and 5. The teams that ended up losing their halftime lead, I have 4 of them here. It was Cleveland, Philadelphia, Miami, Tennessee, and I think the 5th one ended up being the game that was last night, which was Kansas City. So 8 and 5 for the teams that had the halftime lead. Again, this number at the end of the year most likely will be mid 70s. So to have a week that's 8 and 5, you're obviously going to see some losers across the board, including Etoile. Trifectas where everybody is on one side, that being the sharps, the bettors, and the tickets and the money pool. That is calculated by when we did the show this past week. It was on Sunday, so it was as late as it could get. Anyway, those were 2 and 3. Carolina and Detroit ended up winning when everybody was with them. The teams that ended up losing was the Thursday night game, which was the Rams. It was the Vikings-Browns game. Everybody was on the Browns in that one, and the Vikings ended up pulling it off. And then the Monday nighter, which was the Chiefs, which ruined me. And as I'm just sitting there looking at it, I said, you know what? I knew that this was going to happen because this season for me,
we call this place Loserville.
Is big time Loserville. So pros versus Joes were 1-1. Denver won with the pros on them, that being the sharps and the money pool, and then Washington won with just the tickets. So here it is. Here's the big tab. It's the performance tab, and as we go to it, you will see that it is just a. It is not good. You look at those.
God damn it, Leroy.
Numbers, and that's what you're thinking. You're just, I don't.
You'll get nothing and like it.
It's horrendous.
When takes for nothing! You're an idiot.
That's exactly what he is.
So went into the week 7,000. My brother went in at about 9,800. We were both losers. He lost 150 more than I did. However, it didn't matter because he was almost $3,000 more up than I am. So at this, you can see that margin there in big fat red letters. And if you're listening to it, I'll just tell you what it is. It's almost negative 30%, which is goddamn horrendous. Now, in straight dollars, it's 2,500. But again, I started at 8,500. So it's a shit ton of money. And looking back at what I did wrong, again, it's just the teams that I thought were read. And this year, not only have my best bets been horrific, but all of my super contests have been awful. I was 1-4 again last week with super contest picks. I say super contest. Me and my brother are not out in Vegas. We are not part of the super contest. We just pick 5 every week, as though we were. And so between best bets and super contest picks being awful, how are you? What kind of read do you have? You don't. You don't have any read. And so what you're betting, especially if you're doing multi-team parlays or teasers or the rest of it, if you don't have reads and you're trying to put multiple events together, good fucking luck. Because my money line, right? Because the past couple of weeks I've almost hit these money lines. I was 1 game short 2 weeks ago. I was 2 games short last week. This week I was 1 for 6 in my money lines. I hit Indianapolis. Philadelphia, no good. Seattle, no good. Chargers. Bills. Arizona. I mean, I should have just done it the other way. But if I did it the other way, then Indianapolis would have lost. The other teams would have won. Or, whatever. Went with the other teams. Then Indianapolis would have been the one that cost me because it was the Raiders. Point being that I cannot even explain away this week. This was the real gut punch because while the other weeks there was literally like 1 or 2 teams that turned the tide against me, and those happen to be my best bets, or the ones that I thought were going to be one of my best bets and therefore fell into the super contest. This week it was just straight carnage. It was awful, horrendous, X across the board. Same with my brother. He didn't have as many picks, but none of his came in either. The biggest gut punch for me is that I decided to do Kansas City. And so I'm sitting there on Monday night and I'm like, well, I got Kansas City -3. Now the spread's up to 3.5. So I got the better of that number. And this'll, better than half my losses. And then Kansas City just ended up shitting the bed. Well, I shouldn't say that, they didn't shit the bed, but somehow, Jacksonville's able to pull that game off at the very end when, I don't know, Chris Jones decides to quit on the play. Everybody decides to quit on the play where Trevor Lawrence fumbles the ball at the snap, falls down, picks it up, falls down again, picks it up, and then runs for a touchdown. Like, what are we doing? It's a simulation theory. I think I wrote that on Schefter's one. I think Schefter posted the video of it, and I was just like, what explains this? Simulation theory. That's what it is. It's simulation theory. Although another thing that I've been cued into recently is the script belief that is very popular on Twitter. And that is that, sporting events are scripted. And it's a fascinating, and me as somebody who loves conspiracy theories, like that one is just super juicy. And so I have been looking into that more and more and more. But as it applies here, simulation theory, scripted, whatever happened, Kansas City was not meant to win that game, even though they got all those goddamn calls. That pick call, right? That pick call on the first drive, the second drive, whatever it might have been, was the most egregious pick I've ever seen. And they didn't call it, which was crazy. How do you not call that, right? I mean, it was not a rub route. It was the guy ran in to the defender who was man on man with Kelsey and then just sat there. He didn't, they tried to play it off. They turned and went for the ball. I looked at it and I just said, they're going to get that call. Holy shit. And then the pass interference that ended up being on Kansas City that they didn't call, and Kansas City got the interception, right? These are, you want to believe in scripted. Those are calls that only go to Kansas City, right? At all times. And they went again there last night. But through it all, it was not meant to be. Jacksonville ended up winning. And I ended up losing. Yes. So let's just revisit how we went into the week, what happened, and how we left, right? So when we were going into the week, I had said that I thought there were 3 top teams, right? This is how ridiculous this season is. And this is the overarching large point that I like to make. which everybody seems to be saying now, so this is nothing earth-shattering or original, is that the 2025 football season, NFL season, has been one of the worst that I can ever remember, right? I'm old as shit. I'm almost 50. I remember the scab year. That might be the last time I can remember watching football and just being so disenchanted with the play. And I know every year when the season starts that everybody talks about how bad the play is, and especially since the preseason is dialed down and they don't practice as much and the rules and regulations that have been put. Agreed. I mean, the quality of play has always started off slow and built up. This season just seems so above and beyond what I remember seeing even in the most recent past. I mean, this football really does suck. And there's so many trash teams. And the good teams aren't even that good. So last week going into it, I thought there were 3 good teams, right? I thought there was the Bills. I thought there was the Eagles. I thought there was the Rams. All three met their maker on Thursday or Sunday. The Rams, whatever, that's been chopped up. The Bills, I mean, you lost at home to Drake May and the Patriots. Now, the Patriots probably are better than I thought going into it. I didn't think they were dog shit. I thought they were going to cover. But I didn't think that they were going to win. The Bills, I kind of thought was the most complete team. Granted, everything. I like the Bills and I like the Rams, right? And the Eagles, I kind of gave it to them only because they were undefeated. They were able to pull out these games in these spots. Their defensive line, solid. Line was a little banged up going into it, got more so banged up in the game. But I thought that they were still in that top tier, right? And they're Super Bowl champions. You got to give them something. Eagle fans have been saying that they were sketchy, borderline bullshit successful for the past 4 weeks, but I'm still giving them in there. All 3 of those teams lost. The Rams, I'm still probably going to believe in them, and the Bills too. The Eagles have to take a step down. But anyway, those were the top 3 teams and they all lost. Then I had this tier like they're okay, right? And out of that, the Chargers, Kansas City, and Seahawks, those 3 teams lost. Detroit, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville won, and Green Bay didn't play. Then there's the hurt teams. The hurt teams actually did all right. San Francisco won, Tampa Bay won, Minnesota won, and then Washington won. And then Cincinnati and Baltimore lost so bad that Cincinnati turned around today and then traded for Joe Flacco. Giant fans upset because they were hoping to unload Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, and Cincinnati had no interest in either of them, I guess. And so went with Flacco instead. So Giant fans sit with, 2 quarterbacks that they're never going to use unless Dart gets hurt, and that's the last thing the Giant fans want. But anyway, Baltimore and Cincinnati crashed that low, and Baltimore now is basically what? They're done with the season, right? They're not going to make the playoffs. How can you see that team, especially if Lamar Jackson's out of commission for another week or 2? How are they going to turn it around, right? It's going to be tough enough for teams like Kansas City, who have a really tough schedule coming ahead of them, to, be able to turn around, but they'll be fine. But Baltimore's got nobody. They're hurt everywhere, right? You've all heard it. You've been listening to NFL content, especially if you're here. If you're here, you have listened to NFL content everywhere else first. But Baltimore's just done. That's it. So then you had the who knows teams. Pittsburgh, Atlanta didn't play. Chicago didn't play. New England won. Dallas won. Houston won. Arizona ended up losing. So Arizona now moves down to the trash level. They'll go with Cincinnati and Baltimore. And then you had the trash teams. Raiders, Dolphins, Browns, both New York teams. New Orleans. Well, New Orleans ended up winning, but those other teams, they all lost. And then also in the trash, you had the Panthers, who cares? They beat up on Miami, right? You had Tennessee, who beats up on Arizona in the fucking one of the weirdest games you'll ever watch in your life. And then you have the Saints, who, for all intents and purposes, they did lose that game had Scatterboo not fumbled the goddamn ball, right? That game was one play. Scatterboo fumble. And had it not been for that Scatterboo fumble, the Giants end up winning the game. You can't convince me otherwise. But congratulations to New Orleans. You got on the board. So how did we get here? It's very easy. Let's look at what happened last week. New England plays Buffalo. Buffalo ends up winning on the road 23 or New England ends up winning on the road 23-20. Denver goes into Philly. Philly, who was one of my biggest bets that ended up resulting in a shit ton of my losses. And I should have seen it going into it. They were it didn't matter that if I changed them out on my favorite bet to Kansas City because Kansas City and Philly both lost. But I had Philly a lot of places. Ultimately, it didn't matter because the other connections that I had in my parlays didn't hit. But Philadelphia's up all the way until the last quarter. I never thought Bo Nix was going to throw, 39 passes? 39 passes for 200 and something yards? What are you doing, dude? What are you doing? Throwing 39 times and then clocking in at like mid 200s or under 300? You're throwing 39 fucking times. You should have 800 yards. 800. That's right. That's a lot. But all of a sudden, Bo Nix comes out of nowhere last quarter and they end up scoring the 18 points, whatever it was, and then they end up winning 21-17. So there go the two of my top two teams, right? The third team, they already played. That was the Rams, and they had lost on Thursday. So then we went to that next tier that I was talking about, right? So Monday night, last night, Jacksonville played Kansas City. Jacksonville ends up winning 31-28 in that crazy last drive touchdown where Chris Jones just decided he didn't want to play anymore. So those two teams, I guess, are just, do you believe in Jacksonville yet? I still can't do it. I can't do it. I watched that game. They pulled it out of their ass. I still can't believe it. I just don't believe in Trevor Lawrence. Liam Cohen, who I thought in the beginning of the year looked like he was going to be a disaster, especially with all the crazy shit that was going on him and Lawrence fighting with each other on the field and telling the Drillman thing and his whole Duval disaster that he did. And then his press conferences where is more broken up and stuttering than I am here on this broadcast. I just had no faith in him. And now, dude, his team plays well. I mean, if he had a good quarterback, like a solid quarterback, above average quarterback, that team would probably be really good. And as for Kansas City, look, they get all the calls. They have just solid components and a system that's been around since the cavemen. So they'll ultimately be fine, but they've got a tough schedule, something that they're going to have to watch. But we're talking about this tier. Detroit, who now will probably move up, they ended up beating up Cincinnati 37-24, the game that everybody said was going to be Cincinnati's. It wasn't even close. Indiana Jones is legit. I have to eat crow on Shane Steichen because I wrote before the season started when he was giving out there was a clip online that he was giving out the the captains for the 2025 season. And it seemed so ridiculous. And I was like, this is the coach. This is the coach giving out the captain patches. This guy will never coach again. Never coach again after he's done here in Indianapolis, thinking that they would be 0-5 right now and Daniel Jones would be just stinking up the field. And now Indiana Jones is completely functional, just wearing his fedora with his whip, just cracking points left and right. And, Steichen looks like a goddamn genius. Looks the opposite of Brian Daboll. And they pound on the Raiders, who you want to talk about, we'll get to coaches in a bit, but I mean, one and done coaches, Aaron Glenn, Pete Carroll. I mean, their teams are playing really bad. And then in this next, I also had Tampa Bay and Seattle. And that game was just pure artillery. It was just ammunition getting fired everywhere. And I eventually will come around on Baker Mayfield. I haven't. I think at this point I have to. Because that team is injured and they're still shooting it out on the road. And I agree. Super cool uniforms. Really awesome to see. Made you think about, when you were younger, and people that are older than me really thought about it when they were younger. And then people that are way younger than me are like, I don't know what's fucking special about those uniforms. But Tampa Bay goes in there. They pull out a 38-35 victory. Then we get to that next tier where it was, kind of like they're okay there. And that was Washington and the Chargers. Chargers are just so banged up, although it looked like they were going to run out Washington in the first quarter, up 10-0. Daniels is back there with that big monster brace on his knee, just hampering around. It doesn't kind of look like he's right. And then it was like night and day. He's back. Daniels is back. Offense all over the place. 27-10. Washington goes home. And Victor goes home a victor. And then you look at all the other games, and these are just straight junk. And I'm not even going to. Houston, who has no line and is terrible, pounds upon Baltimore, who is now in the trash level. You got Tennessee and Arizona again. Craziest game you'll ever see in your life. Dallas and the Jets. The Jets are awful. Again, Aaron Glenn, him, and there's going to be a lot of coach firings. Carroll and Glenn, if they get fired after 1 year, I could see it. Could completely see it. You have the New Orleans and Giants, again, just two loser teams right now beating up on each other. Carolina and Miami, no different. And then Minnesota and Cleveland in a game that London wished they could just get a redo. Because why would you want to watch those fucking teams, Although if you're Cleveland, there is a silver lining. There is a glass that's half full of water. And that is definitely the fact that you have a running back who is legit. You may have two quarterbacks. I don't know. Gabriel was all right. He's all right. But Sanders, you don't know. His whole miming thing was something out of this world that everybody was in agreement. Nobody remembers seeing anything like that. But there were some positives for Cleveland, is my point. Minnesota, you're really banged up. You might have something. The question mark becomes J.J. McCarthy, right? Because they're putting all the eggs in McCarthy's basket. And this is what happens when you go to a quarterback. If you go to a quarterback and you don't pull the ripcord, year 1 and 2, you're probably into it for the extent of their rookie contract, right? I guess it feels like 3 years. Now with McCarthy, you're in year 2 and you've barely seen the guy play. He didn't play year 1. Now it's year 2. Now he's on the sideline. So now you're going to have, regardless of what happens this year, you're going to have to wait until next year to really get a full, year established. The guy's going to be, a 10-year vet before he actually hits the field and you know what you got. So absent him, you got Wentz, but whatever. They pulled out this win, right? So they get a win on the road. They keep their head above water, et cetera. But you can't be super stoked if you're a Viking fan right now. You're hoping that McCarthy comes back and he's good. So then let's look at the stats here, and not stats, but I mean the actual standings. And we'll just go down through the conferences, right? And this is what I'm talking about, where the NFL is just in bad shape. So here's the AFC, and I'll say you have 3 solid teams. You have the Buffalo Bills, you have the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm going to throw in the Denver Broncos. Now, Denver, I didn't even put in a category when I was mentioning all those trash teams, who knows, et cetera. I put them in the Bo Nix category, right? Because you don't know what you're going to get out of that guy. And even though I still like Trevor Lawrence, I have no faith in Bo Nix in anything that he does. But if you can get a fourth quarter out of him for 4 quarters, then maybe, just maybe, you're going to have a super solid team because everything else looks to be in place. You really just have to reel in Bo Nix and get some kind of above average consistency out of him. And he might have it. Unlike Trevor Lawrence, who I don't think has it, and I think you've seen it enough. I mean, this is year 2 of Bo Nix. And I don't know what the switch is inside his head that goes off and on that allows him to play one way in 1 quarter and another way in the other 3. So Buffalo, Indianapolis, and Denver. Then I have a second tier. I'm going to put Jacksonville, Kansas City, Chargers, and New England in that, right? I'm going to move New England up because New England could have a different, if they beat the Raiders week 1, they would end up having a record right now of, where are they here? New England, they would be 4-1, right? A lot different than what it looks like they're at 3rd and 2 when they're, smacked up in the middle here amongst all these teams. The Chargers, look, they just have to get healthy. If they get healthy, obviously they're not going to get all the way healthy. But if they get back to now they lost Hampton for 4 weeks, which is like unbelievable. But I'm going to leave them there, even though I think they're probably going to have a rough go here in the short term. But at full health later in the year, I think they're there. Kansas City, I'm leaving there. They have a tough schedule coming up here. They've got a lot of people that they got to go through. But at least in the short term, because they have a system that's been around for so long, plus Mahomes, plus some of these other guys, I'm leaving them there. And then I'll put Jacksonville there only because, how can you argue with it, right? They're 4-1. That's what you want. 4-1, and there it is. And I'm going to do this right quick because I don't want to do the I don't want to do it by. I'm just going to do conference by win totals. And then as trash, I put everybody else in trash. Baltimore, Houston, Cleveland, Tennessee, Vegas, Miami, and the Jets. They're all just dog shit. Right here. I'm putting Houston there too, even though we're at 2-3, because I'm sorry. Without that line, and they had an offense that beat up on Baltimore. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Congratulations. Congratulations on beating up on a decimated Ravens ball club. I'm not putting you in tier 2, and there is no tier 3. There's just 3 tiers here, 1, 2, and trash. And so Houston goes to the bottom of the barrel with Raiders, Ravens, all these guys down here. Now, the team that should just outright fire everybody, they should have done it yesterday, is the Ravens. Not the Ravens, the Dolphins. The Dolphins are done. 1-4. You've seen everything you could out of that team. There's nothing left. There's nothing left to squeeze from that roster. Hill's gone. You've done everything that you could. You try to do the Al Davis, speed kills, 70 Raiders. You had a small window. It has not worked out, and now it's over, right? And every time you see McDaniels now, he's got capri pants. He's stuttering at, the Monday morning press conference. Everything about that thing does not work. Greer has had his chance. It has not paid off. Their roster is one of the shittiest in the league. And so it's over. I can't think of another team that deserves to get blown out as thoroughly as the Dolphins. Giants are probably a close second. But I think the Giants have some more pieces in play than the Dolphins do. But regardless, the two of them are down there. And you probably put the Jets too. Cleveland, again, you have pieces that work and things to be, optimistic on. And Junkins just for one. The dual tight ends, they're looking good. Again, you don't know what you're going to get out of the quarterbacks, but you're going to find out this year. That's for sure. And a defense that's really good. So, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you're upset because the year's gone at 1-4. But you don't know. Maybe you guys prove to have a solid second half of the year, and you got something to look forward to in 2026. Titans, look, they got to win. Callahan's got to go. I don't care that they got that win. Arizona lost that game more than Tennessee won it. And then you got the Jets. They're like Dolphins down here. If you're a Jets fan, what do you look at and are happy with at 0-5? There really is zero. I can't even think of a player right now on the Jets that you would look at and been like, yeah, but he's good. Maybe Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall's actually had an okay season. But if you're looking for the future and players to build on, I just don't think there's that many for that team. Now let's go to the NFC. And for the NFC, there's a little more. I put Detroit, Tampa Bay, and the Rams up in the top tier. I had to pull the Eagles down, even though they're 4-1, because the problems with their roster right now are just too glaring. There are just monster issues for that team, for them to be in the top tier, right? If you put Philadelphia on the road against the Bucs, I think they lose. Against the Lions, I think they lose. Against the Rams, I think they lose. Especially if the Bucs are at full strength. And if you put those other teams in Philadelphia, I think there's a chance that they win. Hell, the Rams almost did win. If it wasn't for a blocked field goal, the Rams kicked that field goal, they win, right? So, Detroit, Tampa Bay, the Rams. The second tier, I'm going to put Philadelphia there. I'm going to put Green Bay, who has got to figure out what they are. If their defense is just a stud defense, then play like it. If Jordan Love is fantastic, then play fantastic. Don't lose on the road to Cleveland. Now, granted, there's issues with the wide receivers. Figure it out. So I'm going to put Green Bay in the second tier. I'm going to put San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington on the second tier. And they're all kind of like, really? Yeah. But they're better than the next tier, which I'll describe. And San Francisco, if they get healthy, they'll be fine. If Seattle can, figure out, Seattle could have won a couple of these other games. They'd be really good, right? And they could have won this last game versus Tampa Bay. They lost against a Tampa Bay team that's played insanely inspired. So it's not like they blew one. It was just, blew one pause at home. But, he just got outgunned by Baker Mayfield, who's out of his mind now for like the second year in a row. And Tampa Bay, who's doing it with yet another new offensive coordinator, because all their offensive coordinators all leave. They're all gone. Canales, Cohen, it's just a matter of time. So San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington. And now Washington is another one of these teams that they will be fine once they get some more pieces together. Daniels gets better toward the end of the year. That team will be okay. And then you have this third tier, Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, Atlanta, right? Minnesota I'm putting there because they're injured. I don't know. I can't make them trash. And so I'm putting them here in this third level. Atlanta and Chicago, you still got to wait out a little bit because they had the bye week, so you didn't get to see them play. And then Dallas, look, I don't know. They're 2-1. They tied Green Bay, who everybody thought was, the talk of the town in the first week after they beat Detroit. Not to be said now, but you got to give them credit for, tying at home when everybody and their brother, including this guy, thought they were going to lose. So put, Dallas in this next tier. Could Dallas move up to that second tier? I don't know. That defense is really bad, but you never know. Maybe they figure something out. But for now, that third tier is Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, and Atlanta. And then you go down to the trash, and you're looking at the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Giants, right? And of those, Arizona, I don't care what argument you give me. So long as Kyler Murray is the quarterback of that team is trash. When he took the ball in the face, when he took that in the grill, and that was when you're just like, nope, this is the same as it was last year and the year before that and the year before that. Like, it has not changed. New players, same results. And then you see the shit on the sideline with Gannon and D. McCarro. Enough with Gannon. Came out and apologized, and then they fined him $100,000. I can't think of another situation, and I'm sure there has been. I know that like coaches have had fights on the sidelines, but I was trying to think of coaches and players getting into actual physical altercations. And it wasn't even a physical altercation because Gannon just slugged him in the chest. Granted, he had on pads, and these guys are, getting car wrecks on the field every single night, day, Sunday, whatever. It doesn't matter. He hit his player. And when Sprewell choked out Carlissimo, he got suspended an entire year. He was like out. Was it a year? Was it 2 years? 1 year? I forget. But, if you're old enough to remember what a big deal Sprewell choking Carlissimo was, no. Gannon didn't choke him. But he certainly as hell hit him. And the team fines him $100,000 for a guy that's probably making, 3 to 5 a year? I don't know what it is. Go Google it. Okay, here's $100,000. Sorry about that. Have we made it look okay? Bidwell, have we made it look okay? Gannon, are you happy with that? You came out and apologized. This wasn't Ben Johnson apologizing about basically undressing a reporter, in the middle of a halftime because she told him that he needed to fix his team, right? Which I get. I get the argument that she said to him, you need to fix things, finishing his sentence. So it wasn't really her telling him that. It was her finishing the thought that he had. But regardless, that's not your function as a fucking journalist. a sideline reporter. Your sideline reporter is to ask the question, stick the mic in the coach's face, and then wait for him to talk. This isn't that situation, right? That situation was like, are we really going to get that upset about this? This was the coach hit his player, he just smashed him, and it was like his headphones came off. I mean, he put effort into it, and he gets $100,000 fine. Good for you. If the NFL doesn't jump in here and end up giving him some kind of suspension, I'd be shocked. Look at that. The hair. It's all natural. It's flying all over. I got to get a haircut. But I got to keep it this level because it's going to be part of my costume. I got to look like this guy that I'm going to buy a costume for. So I need to keep the hair a little bit. Anyway, back to the trash teams. Carolina, I don't even want to talk about Carolina. They pulled off a win against Miami, who is probably the worst team in the entire league and should blow everybody out. And then you have the Saints and the Giants again. That's a one-play game. And that is the Saints, picking up a Scattaboo fumble and running it down for a touchdown. And if I don't know, kudos to everybody should win a game. All fans should win a game each year. So there you go. There's your game winning at home. And for the Giants, fans like me, you're just stuck wondering, like, what is this roster? What on God's green fucking earth is this roster? I don't, what are we supposed to be excited about? Especially without Neighbors. I guess it would be Dart, right? That's what it would be. And so again, you look at these teams and, you go to the league and then you try to, I'm going to sort it by the wins right now. And you look at all the 3-2 teams up, right? Like, okay, those are all solid. I don't believe in the Vikings. Patriots are question mark. Seattle, Broncos, Chargers real hurt. You still got the Steelers. You got to see what happens there. But, you're just looking at these teams and you're like, man, 4-1 teams. Jags, Lions, Bucks, 49ers, Bills, Eagles, and Colts. Not what you thought, when it was week 0, that's for sure. And then down at the bottom, this is what I feel is like the real league right here. This is it right here. It's the Bengals on down. Just crapola. Kansas City again. I think they'll turn it around. But this is a lot of bad teams here to have. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 teams, by my definition, who are complete and utter junk in week 5. So going into week 6, those teams are basically done. It's nuts. It's nuts. So quick look at the stats for the season so far. You can just see here, Stafford just blowing up. Again, the Rams have had a really solid year. It is crazy to see Stafford with 1,500 yards, especially since they thought he was going to be out for the entire season before week 1 started. But here we are. He's leading the league in passing yards. Dak Prescott throwing the ball. I mean, just kind of another wasted year for Dak the way it's going, but they're not dead yet. So there's still some life. Daniel Jones, again, to the chagrin of every Giant fan, that this guy has just become what he is in Indianapolis. I'm telling you, Colts fans, don't get happy because it is going to come to a scratching. Halt. Mark my words. Mark my words. And if it doesn't,
That's great! That's just great!
that would be the thought of every Giant fan on the planet. Rushing Jonathan Taylor came through. So, people that picked him up in fantasy drafts late, super happy with that kind of performance. James Cook also was a steal, as was Javonte Williams, who I actually have in a couple of leagues. I was able to snag him, but he ended up being, people were talking about Jaden Blue. Miles Sanders was also in there, but Javonte Williams, again, Dallas loves to run the ball, and he's really, taking it away. So, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, God, the rookie running backs between Hampton and, Hampton had some decent fantasy points, but Hampton, R.J. Harvey, Trayvon Henderson, Jaden Blue, all these guys that people were talking about, Tootin, and I believe Tootin's a rookie. It might be the second year. I should know that. It sounds stupid. Somebody has an NFL podcast to question that. But all these rookies, you're just not getting anything out of them. They've been all zeros whatsoever. Receiving Puka. It's all Puka, man. I mean, and Jackson Smith and Jigba had a big day on Sunday too, but Puka at 588 is just crazy. I mean, he just gets the ball thrown at him all the time. I think, pull up the game log. Has he had double-digit targets every single game? Except for one. The second week of the season, he had 9 targets. Other than that, he's gotten 11, 9, 15, 15, and 12. 170 yards last week, and then 85 yards this past week. So, I mean, it's just a crazy performance for him. And he's somebody that I never came around. I thought he was good. I never gave him enough credit, and he is really phenomenal. And then Emeka Buka, right? So out goes, what do you call it? Out goes Evans with the injury. And everybody thought that this guy was going to ball out, but nobody thought that he was going to do what he did here. I mean, really impressive what he ended up doing here in such a little amount of time. Amon-Ra St. Brown, etc. And then, defense side of the ball, you're looking at the guys that are Bobby Wagner, man. This guy's going to be 90 years old in this league, just throwing up 100 tackles, 110 tackles. He's just never going to stop. Just guy is phenomenal. Same with Demario Davis. Demario Davis isn't young either. I think he's 35, 36. I mean, you're looking at Bobby Wagner at 30. He's got to be around 36 too. 35, and Demario Davis are 2 and 3 in the league in tackles with 56 and then 48. Akira Key coming back from having an awful last year. Cedric Gay, sacks. Benito, congratulations. You get that contract before the season starts. You lead in the league with seven sacks. Oh, there's my man Josh Sweat. The Josh Sweat, Marquez Sweat, who confused the two of them in the finale of our podcast from last year. Brian Burns having a monster. Spider-Man, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for New York, having a phenomenal year. And if you haven't got a chance to watch the Giants, I don't recommend it because they're terrible. But if you do end up being forced to watch them because they're playing your team, watch Brian Burns because he is a blast to watch and he's super fun. And then interceptions. Devin Lloyd, man, he just killed it. That game was going to the Chiefs, and I was going to prosper. Not really. I was just going to cover some of my losses. And then Devin Lloyd comes around and just steals it. He grabs victory from the jaws of defeat. And here I sit with nothing. Nothing in my bankroll. Just a big fat 0. Goose egg. So, Mike, do you have any thoughts on that? Yeah, all right. Well, you saw the Jets and the Giants play, Mike, on Sunday. What'd you think of that?
It was the worst thing I've ever seen.
I agree. That's just a quick shout to all the New York, New Jersey listeners that are out there. All right. Anyway, that's been long enough for the Week 5 fallout. I will punch out here and then hopefully see you guys later in the week. My brother and I were talking about getting together tomorrow. I don't think I can, but maybe we can record. But we'll see. Hopefully I'll get him on the show this week so you won't have to listen to me just blabber for, an hour plus. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you didn't find something entertaining this time, maybe next time. Or maybe the time after that. Or maybe not at all. Anyway. I'll see you late. See you late? What the fuck is that? See you late. It's like my kids. My kids say buns now instead of ass. Instead of just straight, shitty. It's buns. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'm out of 5,000.